Hello and welcome to Guy Logic. My name is Temco and today we are taking a look at a game called ET Armies. ET Armies is brought to you by a studio from the Middle East, and we, or at least I, don't see a lot of games come from that region, so we're gonna see what it is. I'm really curious. The game describes itself to be a first-person shooter set in the future, and it plays like a very tight on-rail shooter. Let's see if it's worth your $15 or regional equivalent over on Steam, and we're gonna first look into some options, followed by some single player story content. There are going to be some minor spoilers. Sadly, I could not avoid those, so if you really don't want any spoilers, then you might not want to view this video past about a halfway mark. But honestly, the story is kind of wank, so yeah, that. Let's get into some options. If you do not want to hear me talk about options for the next 2 minutes or so, then I suggest you press the annotation and skip straight ahead to the gameplay section. Options wise, the game has graphics, audio, and input. Graphics have a resolution option going quite far. I like this. Quality goes to ultra high, textures goes to ultra high, and shadows go to ultra high. The game is locked at 60 FPS but can drop lower. I just haven't been able to get it to go any higher with or without VSync. So I'm not sure what's going on there. It might just be locked to 60 FPS. 60 is fine, but you know, it would have been nice to be able to unlock it for those people with higher refresh rate monitors. Graphically, the game looks stunning, and on my GTX 780 I can run it on max settings more or less and have a full smooth 60 FPS. One notable exception is a segment where it suddenly drops to 35 FPS for about 10 seconds, but that is only once in the entire game, so that might just be a bug. Let's see if they fix that. Options you'd expect are here. The options I'm not seeing here are a FOV slider, which I would have liked to include here because the FOV is pretty tight, and a way to resize gun models to something a bit tinier because the gun models are humongous, but that's often the case in the sci-fi first-person shooter. So those are the two options I'm really missing here that I would really have liked. Also, the game does not have a window to full screen switch. It only has full screen. I'm not sure what's up with games the last couple of weeks that have come out without proper switching between full screen windowed and full screen windowed, but really guys, that is not okay. Get that shit sorted. Okay, moving on. Gamma, anti-aliasing, anisotropy, with this anisotropic filtering obviously. I've turned off motion blurs because it was giving me a headache from all the lens flares in the game, but the game looks pretty. I'll give it that. It looks absolutely amazing. Audio-wise, master voice, music, and SFX volume, the game is fully voiced, and for an indie studio, I find that to be a noteworthy mention. Even though the voice acting is not what you would call studio quality, it still has, you know, nice lines and nice dialogue. Input-wise, these are your bindings. They are fully rebindable, so that is really good. You'll even have mouse speed if you want to change that. I'm not sure why you would. And multiplayer versions have chat. It does not have voice chat supported, but again, indie title, so we can only ask so much. The game runs on Unreal Engine. I'm not sure which one. I'm going to assume it's Unreal 4, but I might be very mistaken on that one. So it runs as you can expect of an Unreal game. That's pretty much it. Pretty good. Outside of the things I mentioned that are missing in the options menu, everything looks and feels pretty fine on this end. So let's get into some single player. I would show you the multiplayer, but actually let me show you the multiplayer. If I say join server, it's gonna go on the internet, and you can also check LAN, so that's pretty good. Yeah, there aren't any people playing. Obviously this is a pre-release copy, so this is not unexpected, but yeah, there isn't exactly any people playing the game, so there's that. So I can't really tell you how the multiplayer is going to be either, because I just don't know. I haven't had the chance to play against anyone. Okay, so the game has two ways to play it. You go from start to finish in the story, or you can do load mission. Once you finish the mission, and these are all the missions, you can reload the mission and play from there. The story will progress as if you were playing the entire story, so you will not finish a mission and then have to go to this menu again. You will go mission to mission as if you were just playing the story. The game has 3 difficulty settings. It has easy, normal, and brutal. Brutal is unlocked once you finish the game. I hate when developers do this. Do not lock difficulty settings behind a story gate or a content gate. If the game is easy on normal, it detracts me from finishing the game to even try it on brutal. Brutal is not a achievement to gain. Brutal is a difficulty setting to get the challenge I want from an FPS or any other game. So that's a bit of a shame that they've decided to lock this behind finishing the game on normal. The game on normal, it's pretty easy in my opinion, but is it any good? Well, we're gonna dive into this level, which is the refinery, which is about as showcasing of the title as you get. It has most of the enemy variety, as well as most of the weapon variety, a bit of dialogue, and it really showcases the on-rails part of the game. So let's dive into some gameplay, and let's see what it's all about, shall we? Okay, so I call this game On Rails, and this level is basically you following a rail, so that's pretty obvious. The game mostly has you fight waves of enemies, and it does so either by you alone or with 1 or 2 companion AI. These AI companions are utterly useless, and you can safely ignore them. In fact, that is basically what you will be doing, because they do not have hitboxes you can interact with. You could shoot an entire magazine at them, and it won't matter. Now, the same goes for the enemy AI. It too is as dumb as a brick. This is probably the game's weakest point, I feel. The AIs run to a predefined location and then start shooting. They will use either their machine gun without moving. Like, they'll move left and right, but they'll not try to flank you. They'll not try to surround you. They will not use any tactics you're used to from AAA releases of current days. And that will be fine, because the game is not a AAA release, but the AI is just really dumb as bricks. It will keep shooting at you behind cover, regardless of what. I think the AI also cheats a little bit, because I've never seen the AI reload or do anything of the sort. Now, there's a couple of different enemy types. They're well fleshed out in their archetype. There is the grunts, that's the ones I'm fighting right now on screen. They are mostly there to be cannon fodder. They'll sponge up some bullets, and they'll drop their weapons, and that's gonna be it. Other than that, there is a different variant of them that has armor that takes quite a few more hits to kill, including 2 shots with a sniper rifle, unless you obviously hit him in the head. Other than that, there is a lad with a shotgun and then a sniper rifle. And these are the main enemy types. There's also some robot enemies that fly around and shoot from the sky, and we'll show these a little bit later on. Now, as I said, the AI is dumb, but the guns themselves are fine, both on you and on the AI. They have impact. If you get hit, you don't feel spongy, and neither do the enemies. You're not taking 20, 30, 40 bullets to the face. If you get shot by the sniper, you are going down in 2 hits. If you get shotgunned in the face, you will take significant damage. The game does not shy away from damaging you. The game does have a regenerating health system, so as soon as you duck behind cover, you will be fine in a few seconds. And you generally will be fine because, again, the AI is pretty dumb and does not chase, nor do they throw grenades or anything of the sort. You yourself do have some grenades, which they will not try to avoid. So, again, it's a rail shooter, and you're fighting in waves, and that's the basis of the entire thing. Now, guns obviously run out of ammo. Ammo can be picked up by either going to an ammo restock point, these are conveniently spread out to the various levels, or by picking up a enemy's rifle and using their ammo until such a time becomes necessary. You'll find rifles and such thrown through the levels, and the guns look and feel fine. The various assault rifles have a variety of feels. The one criticism I have for the assault rifles is that their spread, as well as their bullet travel, and all the things like that, are very low. The recoil feels a little bit soft, especially on high caliber rifles like the one I'm using earlier. Sniper rifle feels glorious. It feels heavy. It results in a heavy hit. You can see the enemies react to it. I mean, it's great. Using the sniper rifle is probably my favorite part of this game overall. But the assault rifles, there is 4 variants. The one you start with is obviously your variant, and the enemies have 3 additional ones that act in slightly different ways. All the recoil patterns are slightly different, and they have slightly different styles and feels to it. The amount of guns available in the game is pretty limited. Outside of the 4 assault rifles, there's only 1 pistol, there's also only 1 shotgun, and only 1 sniper rifle. And this completes all the guns outside of a special item to take down aircraft. So that is a bit of a shame. But again, it is a indie release on $15, so there are limits to what you can do. I would have preferred to see a few more guns available just for variety's sake. Maybe a couple different types of shotguns, maybe a couple of different things like that. But they're going for this sci-fi hyper-realism, so things like flamethrowers and the like are definitely out. Now, gunplay-wise, I have zero complaints outside of the variety of guns. What I do have complaints about is the way you have to use guns in certain situations. For example, most games, if you aim, you press down shift or some other button, and then when you release it, it toggles it back off. This game uses a toggle for aiming, meaning that every time I want to switch off, or every time I want to reload, or something like that, I have to move out of the aim mode and then press the reload button, which is kind of fiddly. Also, if you are in the middle of an animation, the reload never gets triggered, and that costs you precious time, and it might even get you killed because you're so used to game reloading regardless of what. You always have to wait for animations to finish before you can do a reload. The same goes if you start to sprint. While a reload animation is in progress, it will just cancel the reload and you will start sprinting, which is really annoying. Now, having said that about aiming, a similar situation occurs with crouching. See, crouch is only done when you're holding it down, and because you are generally taller than the buildings you're hiding behind, either discard, I'm using in this level, or crates, or walls, or anything like that, you will need to keep crouching, and you have to keep that button pressed down. Now, by default, this is the control button, so that is really annoying. I would have preferred this be a toggle, or at least an option to make it either a toggle or a press to hold. So yeah, that's it really on the gunplay aspects. They feel fine, and the enemies react pretty well. What I will give them though is that the companion AI is utterly useless. I mean, out of all the enemies here, I think he has killed one in the entire time we've been in this level. And I mean, he's just there to provide flavor text and maybe draw some fire away from you when you are hiding behind cover and the enemies are shooting at something. It may serve a purpose to alleviate a bit of the dumb AI. Some other things they do try to alleviate the dumbness of the AI is to spawn the AI in locations where they would never go on their own. For example, they will spawn the AI from doors behind you, or they will have the AI rush forward and get in close to melee range with a shotgun, trying to flush you out of cover in that fashion. Not because the AI thinks that is the best way to do it, but because they are pre-programmed to run that way. Other than that, it is satisfying. It performs fine. The guns that are in the game are pretty well done. All the sounds fit, and the like. One sound that is comically out of place with all the other gunplay sounds is your own death sound, which sounds more like a bovine grunt of pleasure than it does of you dying. So I wish the developers would fix that, because the first time I heard that, I nearly had a heart attack. Okay, let's talk a bit about the UI and how that functions in providing you good gameplay. Overall, the UI does exactly what it should. And coupled with the various sounds the game has, for example, the very loud sound when the enemy snipers take a shot, really allows you to know where the enemies are coming from, as well as what they are. Now, in the top left, you have a radar that will give you a approximate direction of where an enemy is. And the top right, you have your gun and ammo counter, which indicates how much ammo you have left, how many rounds you have left in your magazine, as well as which gun you have equipped, as well as how many grenades you have available at that time. The UI is very sparingly decorated, for good reason, and I like that way. I like minimalistic UIs that still convey everything they need to. The impact notifications when you hit something, besides being very visually accurate, also indicate by your reticule going slightly off color, going red, and slightly expanding when you hit something. When you miss something, you'll hear a very unique sound distinctive to that. So overall, I have no complaints about the visual side of the game giving you feedback. That is very well done. The same goes for grenades. They'll go down, and you can miss them. They'll go and explode in a very big bang, and it's very satisfying. Overall, no complaints on that at all. Graphically, the game runs fine. I said earlier, the game is locked to 60 FPS, and up to this point, it has never dropped below 60. There is one point a little bit further right in the story where it drops to 35 a few seconds later. Now, what I said with on rails as well is going to be very clear. The enemies would keep respawning at this point, even if I didn't do this. If I killed all the enemies, just a new wave would appear. And the AI would wait until I did anything specific, until I got on the cart before continuing. There is no way to move away from this. If I went and ran away in the opposite direction, the direction we came from, the game would give me a flash message saying, hey, turn back, you're going the wrong way. And if I went further away, it would just instantly kill me and I had to restart from a checkpoint. So even though the game initially starts you in what appears to be very expansive areas, this is a blatant lie. The game has one way to go forward, and everything else is either locked off by instant failure states or invisible walls. Now, dialogue-wise, the game's dialogue is pretty okay. It is not amazing, but for an indie studio, it is noteworthy to mention that they actually have dialogue, and I really enjoy that. Story-wise, though, the game is very subpar, and the story ends on a very weird note. It doesn't explain anything. I am become none the wiser of this world. They build up this sort of hidden story. They build this maybe mystery up. They build up the reasons why these enemies might be fighting you, what the reasons might be, but none of that gets resolved whatsoever. And if that's a spoiler, I'm sorry, but I mean, it doesn't get resolved anyway, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, the game also ends on a cliffhanger. You just fly away and that's it. It doesn't convey anything at all. So I'm not sure what they were thinking in regards to the story, but it feels like a tacked on piece of something just to convey the art style they were going for, as well as the gameplay they wanted to showcase. Now, after you finish a level, and the levels have pretty nicely spaced quick saves, you get a little bit of story, you get a little bit of dialogue, and these sometimes happen in the middle of a level, these sometimes happen between level. There is not that many load screens, there are a couple though. And again, I have to say, the game does look gorgeous. I mean, this is what I'd expect from a AAA studio in terms of visual fidelity. Everything looks fine, everything feels fine, there is no weird glitches in terms of graphics. Yeah, no complaints at all about graphics. If you are a graphics person, this game looks absolutely fucking amazing. So yeah, there's that. Even the animations are spot on. Everything looks and feels great. So, what isn't so great? Well, first things first, we're going to talk about the length of gameplay. The full story mission on normal difficulty took me 5.5 hours to beat. This is very short, even for a $15 game. Also, they content lock a few things behind the brutal difficulty after you finish the main game. I don't like this. I think I would have enjoyed the game a lot more if it was on brutal difficulty. Right now, it felt more like shooting puppets than it did shooting enemies. Maybe if it was a little bit more difficult, I would have felt slightly different on that. And I have no idea how the game's multiplayer will be. I felt performance was fine, but I couldn't really test it because I was the only one available online. Lengthwise, there's that. Story-wise, there is not a lot of replayability. I finished the story, and if you really want to build a little bit more difficulty, you could probably do that and get a little bit more difficulty out of it on brutal mode, but that will give you one more playthrough at most. As I said, there is a couple of AI varieties, but once you figure out how to kill them, they all end up being the same. For example, this flying thing just takes a few bullets to the face to explode. The other variant of flying thing takes a few more bullets to the face to explode. I mean, that is really it. The shotgun dude fires a couple of shots and then waits 2 seconds and then fires a couple of shots more. I mean, it is pretty clear what they are doing. Now, having said all of that, did I enjoy my time with ET Armies? And the answer is yes, I did. Why did I do it? Because the gunplay and visual fidelity were great. The gunplay felt fine. I didn't feel like I was trying to force the game, even with the annoyances I mentioned with crouching and reloading. But I feel these are minor things that can easily be solved in a hotfix, even before the game's official launch, for example, because they aren't that big a deal. They're mostly preferences. What isn't preference is the game length and the sheer lack of replayability. I feel that currently the game just doesn't have the content for its price point. And that's a shame, because I wish they added a few more levels. Maybe an hour or 2 more content would have been fine. Just something. If the story was better, I would have probably overlooked the length and said, yeah, the story is pretty good. You know, it's an Unreal shooter. Play it for that. But the story is pretty bad, so that's not a reason to play the game. So I'm not sure what your choice would be at. But if you like this sort of gameplay, then yeah, it's pretty good. Now, do I have any final points to make on the game? And the answer to that is yes, yes I do. My final points on ET Armies are as follows. That I really enjoy the visual fidelity, I really enjoy the performance, I really enjoy the quality of the art style, even if I don't really, I've gotten bored of a sci-fi futuristic shooter setting. it's been done to death. But I like it because it looks nice. It feels nice, the guns feel up to par, but the game has all the growing problems of an indie game. And that's a shame because it deserves its spot in the limelight, but I'm not sure it's going to get it based on the fact that it's only about 6 hours long and only provides a very limited amount of content. So, there are my points for ET Armies. An enjoyable on-rail shooter that pretty much hits the mark for its $15 price tag. It doesn't have $60 of content, and it doesn't feel like a $60 AAA. It feels and plays like an indie that it is. So if you think you like the kind of gunplay you see here for ET Armies, you can check it on Steam on March 3rd. And if you are unsure what you want to spend money on a shooter that is subpar compared to your $60 equivalent, well, I'm sure another COD or Medal of Honor will appear sooner rather than later. So thank you for watching. If you like this video, press the like button below. If you didn't like this video, press the dislike button. It's there for a reason. Also, leave us a comment. Tell us what you think we did great. Tell us what you think we can do better. And tell us what you think of the game itself. And if you want to see more content like this and other critical content on the channel, just press that subscribe button and we will deliver. And until then, I wish you a good day. And until next time, right here on Guy Logic.